Good evening, guys. This is your tutor, Mr. Fred, and today I want us to talk about the principles of international maritime logistics. So this is a unit under um, uh, level 4, logistics, shipping and logistics, ABMA. So straight away, without wasting more time, I want us to understand what the word logistics means. Logistics, if I may say, it has got varied meanings. And what we are going to look at is just a simple way in which we can define it. And here we say that logistics um, has been used in has been used more broadly to refer to the process of coordinating and moving resources, people, materials, inventory, and equipment that is from one location to the storage at a desired destination. And this term originated from the military, referring to the movement of equipment and the supplies of troops in the field. So the term logistics, it was a term which was basically being used by the military in supply of troops. So that aspect which they were using to supply troops in the field of war, they were referring to it as logistics. And it is where it was borrowed by traders that the aspect also of moving resources or of moving people from one point to another point, we call it a logistics. So there is these two terms which they are used in varied ways, but they're more or less the same. There's what we call the logistics, which I've just explained briefly, and there is also the supply chain management. Now, logistics and supply chain management are terms that are often used interchangeably, but actually refer to two aspects of the process. So they're used interchangeably, which means that one can be used in the place of the other. And logistics, we say it refers to the what happens within one company, including the purchase and the delivery of raw materials, um, packaging, shipment, and the transportation of those goods to distributors. That is, for instance, while the supply chain management refers to a larger network of outside organizations that work together to deliver the product to the customers. That is, it can include the vendors, the transportation providers, the call centers, warehouse providers, and the chain goes on. That is why we call it the supply chain management. I think you know what a chain is. A chain is interconnection of something. Okay. So when we talk about the supply chain, the word chain here, because various parties are involved along the supply channel. Okay. What makes logistics? Now, the management of logistics can involve some of all the following business functions. There is what's called the inbound transportation. Inbound, that is what is coming in. Outbound, that is what is leaving the warehouse or the store. Fleet management. Fleet, we can have various, a larger number of trucks. How do you manage that fleet of trucks? As a logistic provider, you must know which truck is at which particular location, which one is a need service, or how many trucks are available to supply this particular cargo. Warehousing, material handling, order fulfillment, inventory management, demand planning. So all those aspects makes the component of logistics. Now, the importance of logistics. Logistics as we've said, that involve that movement of resources from one point to another. So what do you think will be the importance? There are various. So it is said that although many these small businesses focus on the design and the production of their products and services to best meet the customers' needs, if those products cannot reach customers, then the business will fail automatically. So that is the major role that logistics plays. So it ensures that the customer's needs and desires are met in the right time, and it helps in fulfilling the concept of GIT. That is the Japanese concept of GIT, what we refer to as the just in time concept. But it is said that it also impacts other aspects of the business too. That the more efficiently raw materials can be purchased, transported, and stored until used, the more profitable the business can be. So if we can get these raw materials in an easier way, we get easy transport. They are stored in a better way until that time when they're being used. Then automatically, the end product of what is going to be produced is also going to be cheaper. So the coordination of these resources to allow the timely delivery and the use of these materials can make or break a company. So why do we say that this coordination can make or break a company? For instance, if the raw materials are not supplied into to the company in the right time, it means that the production process will stop. And when the production process stops, it means that the supply chain is going to be broken. Okay, so it means that the proper coordination of these resources is very important. And in the case whereby, again, there is excess production and the flow of these products to the market is missing, which means that they are not being released to the market, then there's going to be a bulk or a bulk of products being stored in the warehouse, and even we can run out of spaces to keep the extra one. So proper coordination must be there, that as we produce, they also leave the store so that the space is created for the incoming cargoes, because we don't want an aspect whereby the organization is going to incur an extra expenses in acquiring space, in going to incur the extra expenses also in maybe hiring more people to maybe like security and all that. And also remember, if the chain is broken at any point, it means that there's going to be deficit of this material in the market. And when the material is missing in the market, what does it mean? It means that once the crisis is created in the market there, the deficiency of that product in the market, and the crisis is created, the prices are going to be hiked. You see, so we should not make our product to be scarce in the market. So the more efficiently, as we said, those raw materials can be purchased and get their ways in the market, then the better. So, and on the other side, um, so as I was saying, that on the other side, um, on the customer side, that is the receiver of this particular product, if the product cannot be produced and shipped in a timely manner, customer satisfaction can decline. Remember, one thing you need to know is that we are there to satisfy the customers. The customers are not there to satisfy us. And that is one thing you have to know, that the customers, we exist for them. And if we both need each other, let me just put it in a simple way, that both the seller and the buyer, we need each other. But the seller needs the customer more than the way the customer needs him. Why am I saying so? The customer's got options. If you cannot provide what he or she needs in your store, automatically he's going to find an alternative provider, and you lose the game. So mostly, most business people, they like working with the supplier who is reliable. And if they find out that you're not reliable, then they'll switch their elegance to another person who is more reliable than you, because the less reliable you become, then it means that It means that they are going to seek for another person whom can meet their daily requirement of supply, because customers can leave them. Now, um, international supply chain management, um, if you try to define it, um, that it's just similar to the supply chain management. They are more or less the same. Because the other one we say is the management of flow of involving goods or services presented by the transportation and storage, by the inventory and shipping schedules, beginning with the acquisition of these raw materials to providing the final product to the end consumer. So in the case of international supply chain management, this particular flow assumes the involvement of at least one company from abroad, with the purpose of creating a network of compost out of the transnational companies. So, so essentially, global supply chain management is just same as the supply chain management, but it focuses on the companies and organizations that are transnational. That is, which means that they can go beyond their country borders, just to ensure that a customer who resides on the far end of the chain gets the product or gets the cargoes at the right time. So globally, global supply chain management has 6 main areas of concentration. And these areas we have, one, there is logistic management. Two, we have competitor orientation. There is also customer orientation, uh, supply chain coordination. We have supply chain management. We have operation management. And these 6 areas of concentration can also be divided into 4 main areas. That is the marketing, the supply management, logistics, and operation management. Now, successful management of global supply chain also needs complying with various international regulations set by a variety of non-governmental organizations like the UN. So when you want to manage the global supply chain, you have also to be a compliance um, with various international regulations, which are most of them are set by the UN, that is the United Nations. So the global supply chain management can be impacted by several actors who impose policies that regulate certain aspect of the supply chain. Governmental and the non-governmental organizations, they play a very important role in the field. And as they try to create and enforce those laws or regulations which companies must abide by. You know that without rules, without uh, guidelines, human being is a very, very tough person to deal with. So since this thing involves international movement, it must involve also laws that is going to guide it. Without the laws, anybody can do anything they want. No human being, if you cannot control him, then they'll always do whatever uh, benefits him, not benefits you. So with that, it is a requirement that they there is those laws which are put in place to guide the international operations. So these regulations, policies, often they regulate social issues that pertain to the implementation and operation of the global supply chain, that is like labor, environmental, etc. And these regulatory policies, they force companies to obey the regulations set in place, which often impact the company's profitability. Um, Operating and managing a global supply chain is not free of risks. It comes with several risks. And the way to mitigate um, through this risk, you must know which particular risk are you dealing with. And that is why they are normally split into two main categories. There is those ones which are termed as the supply side risk, and there's also the ones which are termed as the demand side risk. Now, what are the supply side risk? These ones are is simply a category of that include the risk accompanied by the availability of raw materials, which affects the ability of the company to satisfy the customer's demand. So that is on the side of the supplier, the supply side risk. In that, if there is uh, scarcity of a particular raw material that is a key component in manufacturing of a product that customers on the other end needs, then automatically it means that there is going to be some gap in the supply of that particular material, which means that it is going to be lacking in the market. I think there are some cases you hear people saying that, this particular product is now not in the market. It is missing in the market. Though we also know that there's those people who normally do the stock holding just to create crisis. But there are cases whereby if there is no enough raw material, or if the readily available raw materials have been exhausted, so you have to maybe get them from a far place, then automatically there's going to be a problem. Now, there's also a demand side risk. Now, this category is a category that include risks that pertain to the availability of the finished product. Now, there might be some times when by many people are in need of a particular product, but that product is not in the market. So it creates a risk in the market that there's that crisis. People are looking for it here and there because um, maybe it was caused by the supply side risk. This raw material missing, the production has stopped, or other elements have stopped the production. So more people needed the material, but the material is not in the market. Okay. Now, depending on the supply chain, a manager may choose to minimize or may take on this risk. Successful global supply chain management occurs after the implementing um, occurs after implementing the appropriate framework of concentration, complying with international regulations set by the government and the non-governmental organization, and recognizing uh, appropriately handling the risk involved while you maximize profit and minimize the wastes. Now, the areas of keen interest, marketing. Now, marketing need to be emphasized by global supply chain managers to create customers' value, satisfaction, and loyalty. Why do we market? We market for these three things. Create the value. Let the customer see why he needs your product. Create that value. Let the customer feel that actually I need that particular product. Then, after creating the value, and the customer decides that I need that product, they need to have what we call satisfaction. Satisfaction comes when whatever you marketed for me, I gave in to buy it, and I found that it actually meets my needs. Then, by accepting that, I've already satisfied my need. And when my needs are satisfied, the next thing is that I'm going to be loyal to your business. Are we getting each other? So I'm going to be loyal. So the element of loyalty will come. So these three things are working together. One, create value when it comes to marketing, create value. Two, that value should drive satisfaction from the customer. And once the customer is satisfied, then the next thing is that the customer will pledge its loyalty to your product. So customer value, satisfaction, and loyalty lead to the improved profit margins, which in turn leads to overall corporate growth. So managers need to think about their strategies and the implications of the strategies on the entire supply chain. One market strategy that is commonly used among business with global supply chain is the customer perspective strategy. Customer perspective strategy, which means that you focus on the customer as the ultimate person to target. So taking a customer perspective towards marketing strategy means focusing mainly on customers. This perspective focuses focuses on understanding the complexity of the customer's values, what the customer put gives a much importance. This perspective involves understanding how customers define and develop their values, understanding how customers set their values, how do they set them, how do they develop them. A company is able to make changes to appeal to the customer's basis values, which in turn leads to greater profit. Now, there are four common and critical challenges that managers face when attempting to design and implement a marketing strategy that best relates to the customer's value. Now, issue, uh, the first issue that the managers face is the challenge of understanding exactly what customers' values in the global supply chain is. So that is, you try to understand what do these people, what do customers globally value. It's not easy. You're a supplier here in Kenya and you want to understand what a Chinese value is not an easy aspect. So understanding customers' values in global supply chain focuses on the task of identifying what supply streams customer value most. What are some of the supply streams that they value most? The second challenge is having to understand the constant changes, uh, the customers' values throughout the global supply chain. Remember, customers' values are not static; they keep on changing. Okay, they keep on changing. So, and they change, either they can change due to technological improvement, they can change due to fashion, they can change. There are several things that can make the customers' values to change. You need to understand that. Now, since customers are constantly changing what they value, staying ahead of the trend and attempting to predict changing values is increasingly a bit cumbersome. So the third challenge is having to deliver. That is having to deliver value in a new environment that has never seen this level of marketplace. So having to deliver value in a totally new environment, they have never seen that level of marketplace. So the global market is becoming increasingly prevalent, which companies are taking advantage of. So therefore, the challenge of attempting to deliver values in a country or a region that has never been exposed to a marketplace, such as this before, arises. The final challenge is creating, creating and staying committed to the solution designed to address these issues. So this is the final challenge that you try to create and you stay committed to the solutions which are designed to address those kind of issues. So solutions to these challenges are implemented, and it is a challenge within itself to stick to these solutions, especially as businesses have increased emphasis on cost reduction efforts. Then number two is logistics. Now, when managing global supply chain, when trying to to manage the global supply chain, when trying to manage the global supply chain, it is important to place emphasis on logistic performance, as this has been an increase an increase in business to business international marketing. So logistic is uh, inherently difficult and complex for global supply chain, as it deals with trade regulations, shipping distances, and cross-currency issues. So you say that logistic is a little bit difficult and a complex global supply chain. And the reason being is that it tries to deal with the trade regulations, the shipping distances, and the global currency issues. We talk about the global currency issues. Remember that we use different currencies, but the one which is uniformly acceptable for trading is normally the dollar. The US dollar is one which is normally globally acceptable for trade. But remember, we also have pounds, we have these other currencies which are also still being used. So companies or organizations who place an emphasis on logistics management can find themselves with a serious competitive advantage, as it has a clear visible impact on the customers. So focusing on customer preferences when implementing and managing companies' logistics service has proven to provide the organization with several benefits. So a customer, the point here is that focus your attention on the customer himself, um, so that by focusing your attention when you're doing marketing or with your supply, you don't want to disappoint the customer. By ensuring that you don't disappoint the customer, what are you trying to build here? The satisfaction. And once you build that satisfaction and trust, then automatically loyalty will come. So one of the major benefits is cost reduction. That cost can be reduced if the company identifies all the necessary logistic segments and then eliminates unnecessary and the redundant ones. So customizing logistics not only reduces cost, but it also increases revenue by appealing to the customer base, which in turn stays loyal to that particular business. So to stay competitive, organizations need to develop global logistics strategies that appropriately and effectively appeal to the customers' needs. So when we do this, companies are able to take advantage of the increasingly profitable global market. Then we have supply management. That supply management deals with the development and management of the critical business and supply relationships. So as the market becomes progressively global, the strategy of outsourcing suppliers has also increasingly being used. So outsourcing suppliers has several benefits for a business if they can effectively develop that kind of relationship. So growing demand and international supply chain management, that globalization phenomenon erased a lot of borders, which when it comes to moving goods, materials, services around the world. So that borderland has been erased with the aspect of the globalization. The world looks like a small village when it comes to the aspect of globalization. Uh, we where you are, technological advances, various changes which are happening. People trade like there is no boundary between one nation and another, like there is no race between one continent and another. We trade very freely. We call ourselves business partners, and because this one has been brought
by the aspect also of what we call the scarcity of materials, whereby there is there is where they say that there is no country which can satisfy all the needs of its citizens. We have uh, things which cannot provide, but we need. We can't produce them, but we need them, our citizens say. So due to that, we must create good business relation with other nations so that we exchange what we have with what we don't have. So today, anyone can purchase goods that come from countries they never saw before, which may be at the other end of the globe without a problem. So also companies can be at the other end of the globe without a problem. And also they can outsource a wide variety of tasks to companies across the sea and get their primary materials for the manufacturing of their product from those suppliers um, that are not from their home country. So the world is one, and having all these um, all these aspects in mind, um, it is easy to understand that the demand for international supply management, chain management, increased in considerable manner in the past few years. So this particular trend is not about to stop, and as end customers are learning that geographical borders are in existence when it comes to getting the product which you need. So operational issues with international supply chain, that the international supply chain is not a perfect entity, and the issues can also emerge. The most frequently meet operational issues can appear in sectors like inventory, transportation, sourcing, marketing, grain logistics, and uh, and in the operation connected to the consumer behavior. So international supply chain management is discussed in more detail in the supply chain management certification. If you go there, you'll find more on it. Then a key characteristics of international supply, international logistics and supply chain management, the optimization of the inventory, making sure that ideal amounts are available at all times. There's also flexibility as the supply chain is capable of adapting to changes in the market and other factors that may influence it. There's also the fast fulfillment of customers' need, which becomes more and more important as people around the world prefer using their mobile devices as a faster way to find and get what they need. You see, today the world is more connected by mobile. Customization. This means that the supply chain will be adjusted to that it will be capable of meeting the demands of the clients. And also sustainability, when talk about that, is a trend that is becoming increasingly prominent in the international supply chain management. And bearing in mind that fossil fuels are, are finite, they are those finite goods. They're not infinite. When I talk about finite, it means that it can be exhausted and they have to be used in a smarter manner while considering the use of other renewable fuels. So up to there, students, we call it a day till we meet next time. Have a blessed evening. And in our next class, we'll start on intermodalism, multimodalism, and transmodalism. You can read ahead on that so that when we meet again, we will have a beautiful time for discussion. Up to next time, have a good evening. Bye.